For today's activity, we're going to be creating a fidget ball. Now, before we do that, since this is going to be one of your first activities in TinkerCAD, let's talk a little bit about how to navigate and how to use the workspace on TinkerCAD. So the main square that we have here is actually called the work plane, and we can change the size and dimensions of that by going down to settings. In fact, we're going to go to settings today, and we're going to change it from imperial, which are inches, to metric. We're going to use millimeters. Once we have that checked, I hit the X, and I can see that I have the snap grid is set to millimeters. And I'll talk about the snap grid once we start building here a little bit. In order to zoom in and zoom out, we have the scroll wheel on our mouse between our buttons. So if you want to practice that, zooming in and zooming out. Our regular click, which is our left click, that's going to be how we can select things. That's going to be used quite a bit in today's activity as we're doing aligning and grouping. The other thing that you're going to want to do is holding down the right mouse button, which is your second button, and that's going to be how you can rotate the work plane to look at things from a different perspective. As I'm rotating this, if you look in the top left corner, you can see a little cube that's also rotating too. That's going to be another way that you can rotate this. So if you're ever working on your iPad and you have, obviously you don't have a right click, you can navigate the workspace like this. If I hover over this, you can see that certain things will highlight. And so, like for instance, if I were to point to this corner between the front and the top and I just single click it, it's going to rotate to that perspective, which is actually, that's the default perspective. Okay, so for today's activity, we need to start by grabbing a few spheres, and we're going to put them on the workspace. In fact, rather than grabbing multiple spheres, I'm going to grab one. I'm going to do some settings with it, and then we can just duplicate it, and we can use it over and over and over again. So I'm going to drag this onto the workspace, and I'm going to let go. And while I have it highlighted, let me zoom in with my scroll. And I want to show you something on here. Now, you might be able to see it in the video. Do you see how this sphere has sides? Okay? Those are called steps in TinkerCAD. And I'm not quite sure why TinkerCAD doesn't automatically have this sphere to be the maximum amount of steps. So, for instance, let me drag this to the left. You can see that it becomes more blocky, okay, less round. If I go all the way up, that is as smooth as TinkerCAD can create your sphere. So we're going to make it 64. We need to change the size of this to, the first one is going to be 50 by 50 by 50. So let's do this. If I were to point to the corners, okay, we can see that we have dimensions show up. If I just single click, it allows me to go in here on my keyboard. I'm going to type in 50, and I hit the enter key. Let me zoom out, and I'm going to zoom back in. And this one's 50. Okay, but you notice that I have almost like a flat little hamburger. I need to change the height of it as well. So these are going to be the sides, 50 by 50. The height here is the top square, not the arrow. We'll come back to the arrow later. In fact, make sure your arrow is, if I were to click on it and drag it up and down, that takes it off of the work plane or below the work plane. We want to make sure it's at 0 so it's on the work plane. So let's click on this square, and let's make this also 50. And now we have our sphere. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to use my right click to kind of rotate this a bit. And I'm going to duplicate this 4 more times, so I have 5 spheres total. So here's how we do that. I click on it so it's selected. And this is our duplicate and repeat. So if I were to click on this, before I do, I want you to watch this sphere right here. When I click on it, you're going to see it flash. So let's watch it. Did you see it? So now what that tells me is it created another sphere. You can't see it because it's in the exact same place. So I have 2 spheres now, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 spheres. Now again, you can't really see them, but if I start dragging these and moving these, I indeed have 5 of them. I'm going to line these up. They don't have to be perfectly aligned, just from a visual perspective. So I'm going to use my scroll mouse. And let me move these like so. So I have 5 of them. Remember, our right mouse button, we can rotate and look at them if we want. So our first one, our first sphere, is correct. It's going to be 50 by 50. The dimensions of these are going to be super important, so make sure you're following along with me. I'm going to click on this one. Now, this should be 50 by 50 by 50, which it is because it's a duplicate of the one above it. I'm going to resize this one. I'm going to show you a little trick how to resize it without having to click and type in numbers for all 3 directions. Before I click on it, if I hold down the Shift key on your keyboard and I wiggle this, and now I need to let go with my mouse first, and then I let go of the Shift key, I now can type in a number here. This one's going to be 43. And what happens if you do that properly is, did you see how this changed to 43 and I didn't change it? But this one's also 43. If you make a mistake, and let's say that, well, let me hit undo, okay? And let's say I'm holding down the Shift key, or I think I'm holding down the Shift key, and my sphere starts to become out of shape. Now, it's not in the proper dimensions, that if I hold Shift and resize it again, it's still not right. So if you make a mistake, simply just go back and do what I did. Hit the undo button, and let's try it again. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key, click on the corner. I'm going to drag it a little bit, give it a little wiggle, but don't let go of the Shift key. Let go of the mouse button first, then let go of the Shift key, and I'm going to type 43. And there it goes. Okay? We do the same process here. So we have 50, we have 43. This next one's going to be 36. So hold down Shift, give it a little wiggle, 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 wiggle. Type in 36. Remember, you need to let go of your mouse click before you let go of the Shift key. That is important. All right, let me zoom out. This sphere size needs to be 29 millimeters. So hold down Shift, wiggle, 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 let go of the mouse, let go of Shift, and then this guy, 29. Oh, didn't take. Let's try it again. I must have not clicked it properly. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. That happens sometimes. 29, and I hit enter. Now, since something kind of fishy happened there, I see 29, 29. Let me just double check by just clicking on this one. Yep, 29. So if you notice something like that happens, you're like, I don't know if I resized it properly. You can just double check. These spheres need to be the same in all different directions. Okay. This is going to be our last one. Let's hold down Shift, give it a little wiggle, let go of the mouse, let go of Shift, and then 22. Okay, now before we move any further, I would love for you to check to make sure that these are all proper, because I've done this activity in the past, and if things don't work out properly, it's typically because the resizing was the issue. So let's zoom out, and I need for you to simply click here, and let's check. So these are going to be 50. The top sphere is 50, so please do this along with me. I'll give you a second if you need the navigator, if you need to pause. 50 by 50, we can click the top square and make sure that that's 50. This one's good. This one here, 43 on both sides here. That's 43 high. Great. Next one. Let me zoom out so I can see this a little better. 36, 36, 36. If I'm going too fast, pause. This one here is going to be 29 on both directions there, and then 29. Our last one is going to be 22 and 22. Great. Okay, so now I have my spheres. Okay, now this part, let me get zoomed back in here. Let me zoom out and zoom back in. Unfortunately, this is going to be a frustrating thing about TinkerCAD. You can't just grab the screen and move it like this, right? Because that's how you select things, okay? I can click home, and that'll go to the home perspective, okay? Or I can hit this, which fits them all in a view, which is pretty nice, okay? We can zoom in and out here too. But your scroll bar, your scroll wheel is probably what you're going to be using the most. Now, what we need to do is we need to put holes inside, perfectly centered inside of each of these spheres. Here's how we're going to do that. I'm going to use my regular click, and I'm going to drag and select only 4 of them, not the bottom one, just 4. I'm going to click this again, and we're going to watch them flash. Now here, this is very, very important here. In order to move my duplicated spheres over, I can't click off of it. If I click off of it, then I got to move them all separately. See how they're all still selected? I have to grab actually one of the spheres and drag it over. You can't grab a blank space. So I'm going to do this. And we made a duplicate. Okay? Now let me hit undo, and I'll hit undo again. So let's show you this again. Highlight them. Hit duplicate. Now, if I accidentally click off, I can't just select all of them because now it's selecting all 8. Okay? In fact, what I need to do is I need to drag them each separately, which is fine, not a big deal. I mean, it just took me all of 5 seconds to do that, but I just wanted to let you know. These are going to be solids. These need to be holes. And I can see over here that we have a hole option. So we can turn any shape, I'm going to highlight all these, into a hole. All right, so even on the right side, if I were to be, let's say that I'm grabbing a cylinder, any shape that I put on here can be a solid or a hole. I don't want that though, so let's throw that in the trash can, or you can hit the delete or backspace button on your keyboard. That'll make it go away also. We need to resize these holes, and then we're going to align them inside of the spheres. So let's zoom in a little bit. We're going to do the same process. They're going to be different numbers. So hold down Shift key. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. Let go of the mouse button. Let go of Shift key. This one's going to be 44. Okay, I'm going to go a little faster here. So if I go too fast, go ahead and pause the video on each step. This one's going to be 37. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. 37. This one here is 30. I'm always grabbing the same corner, but that actually doesn't matter. You can grab any of the corners and do the same process. It doesn't have to be the bottom left one like I'm doing. 37. Okay, so we have, nope, that's not 37. Ugh, Mr. Hale, this one's 30. Okay, so let me backtrack a touch. So this one's going to be 44, 37, and 30. And we'll double check these again when we're all done. And then my last hole needs to be 23. Let's resize this one. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. 23. Got it. Okay, so since I'm on the bottom one, let's work our way up. So we have 23, 23, 23. Great. This one should be 30 all the way around. Good. Next one's going to be 37. 37, 37, 37. Cool. And last one's 44. All right. What we need to do now, here's the next step of the process. These holes are slightly smaller than the ball that they're next to, and we need to put that inside perfectly centered in all 3 directions. And then we're going to do what's called group. So let me do this here. I'm going to zoom out so I can see, and if you want to rotate it up so you can just look at them more from the top perspective, you can either do that here like this and rotate it, or you can just click on top and it does it this way. But I'm going to highlight these top 2, and now I need to use what's called the Align tool. That's this one right here, Align tool. And when I click on that, now let me rotate it down, I get these points to say, hey, what direction do you want to align it? All right, so we have 3 directions here. So let's align this right now from this perspective. We're going to align it vertically, okay? We're going to click this middle circle here, and that's going to align them centered horizontally. And then this one here, this is called the Z-axis. This is going to be make sure that they're aligned, let's say like up and down, okay? So when they are all aligned in that orientation, you'll see that they become gray, meaning I can't make it go into the center of any of these because it already is. Here's your very important step we need to do right now. Highlight this. In a sense, we've highlighted both of them. And we need to click this one right here. This is called Union Group. And when you union something, what happens is that's what actually puts the hole inside of the sphere. So right now this is just kind of like a shape that doesn't cut a hole inside here until we group it. We have a red line that shows up. That means that, hey, we're trying to group it, and then once it groups it, that red line will go away. The other type of union, if I were to highlight this, and let's align these ones. So I'm going to go all three directions, center, center, and then we're going to make sure that it's, vertically in this, from this perspective on the z-axis centered. The other one, the other type of grouping is just a regular bundle group, which means when we move things around, they are associated together. You drag them and they move together. However, they're not actually cutting a hole inside of each other, or they're not actually merged is a better word to say. So I have a hole here that I want to put a union group. Okay, red line. Once the red line goes away, we're good. Something that very likely will happen to you at some point is that red line stays on for quite a while. Or you might even get an error in the bottom left corner that says that it failed to load, or that nodes, there was an error, failed nodes. If that does happen, this is your ungroup button. So right now these are combined. There's a hole perfectly in the middle of this, a hollow ball, like a wiffle ball or a tennis ball. And if I ungroup it, then I can separate them. Okay, but if the red line stays on there, just simply ungroup and regroup. Okay, give it a few seconds for it to actually try to do the process, but if it gets stuck, that's usually the fix. Highlight these ones. Let's align in all three directions. 1, 2, 3. Group this guy. All right, and I have one more group. This last one does not have a hole inside it because the middle of our ball is actually solid. Oh, there it goes. Okay, let's highlight these last ones. All three directions. 1, 2, 3. Union group. Red line. Let's wait for it to go away. Great. Okay, so just so you can see what we created when we do a hole. So let's just for sake of example, let me show you this. I'm going to drag this and make this here. Let's drag this guy and let's make this a hole. Okay, now it's dashed, it's a hole. It's the same height as my square. I don't need you to do this. I'm just showing you what's happening. Let's make this a little bit taller and let's drag this in the middle. In fact, let's use our align tool. Let's highlight this. We're going to align it perfectly centered this way, perfectly centered this way, and you can see since they're both set on the platform, it's aligned to the bottom, meaning they're both sitting on this platform. Okay, so right now these are just two separate shapes, but once I union group these, it's going to actually throw that hole through that shape. So that's what's happening inside this ball that you can't see. Okay, this one's garbage, so let's just click on the trash can. We have a couple more steps and we're actually going to be done with our fidget ball. Now depending on how you look at it, they might look a little stretched and a little weird, kind of like this. This looks a little bit more like an egg. So you have to trust your measurements, 50 by 50 by 50. This one's still good. Now the reason why we made each of these hollow at the beginning and group them before we group them all together, that's a super important step to do. Because what's going to end up happening, first of all, if there are students that have errors on this, more often than not, it's because of the resizing and they don't have the proper dimensions. The other reason why this would happen or you have an issue is because if these aren't grouped together, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to check and I want you to wiggle each of these. And when you do that, you should not see a hole appear. Okay? And what I mean by that is, let's say that these ones weren't grouped properly, and I wiggle this, that's going to be the issue. Okay? And here's why that's going to be an issue. This empty hole, when I put all of these inside each other, and then I group it again, this hole, in fact, is going to cut everything that's inside of it. We don't want that. Let's put this back. Align, here, here, and we're already centered that way, and we're going to union group these things. All right, Mr. Hale, let's get to it. Let's put this sphere inside of a sphere. No, let's not do that. Let's do a couple more things here just to play around with this. I'm going to highlight all these. If I click on, this is my color. Now keep in mind, however you design this, whatever color you choose in TinkerCAD isn't actually going to be the color of filament that it's printed in. Okay, you do that when you upload it to my Dropbox and then you say that it's your last name. So this is going to be called Hale Ball Dash whatever color, and it can be red, black, whatever colors are on the board. So make sure you are checking the board at the end of this project when you save it, because if you type in a color that I don't have written on the board, I'm not going to be able to print it for you. But we can change these colors here, and let's say I want to make it this green. Sure, that green's fine. Whatever color you want. That doesn't actually change it, but what I mainly wanted to show you here is this, transparent. If I have something selected and I click transparent, I can see through it. Now this is not a hole, okay? It is transparent, so I can actually see through the shape. It's still a solid shape, it's not a hole. And I'll show you where this will be handy here in just a second. So let me put the color back on by clicking off transparent. And let's align all of these together. Same process that we did for putting the hole inside, but we're going to highlight all of them. All 5. Align tool, and we're going to do center, center, center. Now once I group these, I now have multiple hollow balls inside of each other. And here's where I can actually check it. So before you go any further, I want you to do this step. So we have them all highlighted. Go to solid as far as the color goes, and I want you to click on transparent. In your sphere, your ball should look like this. Okay, what we have is these rings, these thick rings, are going to be solids, whereas the thin rings are going to be the space that exists between them. So go ahead and look around, and let's make sure that we don't have any of those balls looking more like an egg than a sphere. Once you have done that, let's turn the transparency back off and come to a solid. And here's going to be our last main step. In fact, we have, I guess, 2 steps. But we're going to grab this box here. It's already a hole. It wouldn't make a difference if we grabbed the solid box and turned it into a hole. It's the exact same thing. Does not matter. Okay, but we just need one. We are going to first make this 16 millimeters. Let me zoom over so I can see it. 16 millimeters high. I can drag it up and down and get it at 16, or I can type it in. And I'm going to drag this to be bigger than the ball. Let me look at the top so I can make sure that I'm in. Yep, so the ball is inside of it. We don't have to perfectly align it, but we just have to make sure that that hole is bigger than the ball. When we cut this, when we group this, we're going to cut off the bottom of it, is what we're doing. When we do that, it doesn't matter if we cut air or extra space. Doesn't matter. However, before we do that, I want to make a duplicate of this, and I'll explain why here in just a second. This will make sense. So let's grab this hole that you have created. Let's duplicate it. It's going to flash. There it is. Let's drag it off to the side. We'll come back to it. Now, I'm going to highlight your ball and the hole, and let's group these. Union group. This one might take a second because this is a little bit bigger of a process to cut. So don't be too impatient on this one, because this hole, this square hole, is trying to cut multiple layers of the ball, but it might get stuck. So let's just, there it goes. Okay, I just had to give it a second. If you're sitting there for, let's say, more than 30 seconds, then maybe, like I said, hit the ungroup, highlight them again, and then group them. Let's check the bottom. Let's see how this thing looks. Looky there. That reveals the bottom of our fidget ball, but we're not done yet. Okay, now what we need to do is we're going to cut the top off. And here's how we're going to do that. We're going to highlight both of them. We are going to use the align tool on this one. Okay, and let's just, I guess, in fact, we can just put it around it. You don't have to necessarily use the align tool, but I'll show you how to do that anyway. Okay, so this is the align tool. Okay, just because, let's just center it. Now we want to cut the top off. So what we need to do is we need to click this top align, and what that's going to do is it's going to align this box to the top of the ball and the top of the box. There we go. Okay, so it looks like that. So it's on the top. It's the same height. It's 16 millimeters. Highlight both of them and group them. Again, be a little more patient on this one. Might take a minute. Still waiting. Still waiting. Let's see if we get an error on the bottom left if it pops up. Oh, it worked. Okay. I was honestly secretly hoping we'd get that error so I can show you the steps. Again, you would just simply click undo, highlight it again, and union group. So here is our fidget ball. Before we export it though, let's put it back down on the work plane, which is going to be this triangle here. I can drag it down, make sure it's at 0. Okay, otherwise it's going to show up below the work plane on my program that I sent to the printer. So you can drag it up and down. Yes, you can do that. The other thing that you can obviously do is when you start dragging it, click here and just type in 0. That's the most absolute way to make sure that we don't make that mistake. This is going to be called Hail Your Last Name Ball. Look, I did this already in black, so let's just say it's going to be red this time. Hail ball red. Go to export. Where'd my mouse go? There it is. Let's go to export, STL, and it's going to go to your downloads. I'll just pop up off the screen. But under your downloads, that's where you're going to go into the 3D Print Dropbox link in Google Drive. And you're going to upload that. And if you forget how to do that, there is a video in Schoology that'll walk you through those steps. Once it is successfully uploaded and you see the green check in the bottom of Google Drive, you are done. Make sure that your color that you chose is one of the colors that is listed on the front board. In this video, I said red. Red might not be a choice for today, depending on what's written on the whiteboard. That's going to change from class to class. Once you're all done with that and you're uploaded, you are done for the day. I'll hopefully have these printed for you tomorrow.